Okay, hi everyone. I did a brief demo of mod directory and UI directory to a technical group last week, and I was asked if I could share that demo with a wider group of people. And just pulling it together as a screencast seemed to be the most sensible way of doing that, rather than inflicting a live demo on you all. So I'm going to talk about the progress that's been made with mod directory. Currently in ReShare, on the back end at least, we've got two main work streams, a directory work stream and a resource sharing work stream. This demo, I'm really focusing on progress on the directory. I'll try and pull another screencast together for the actual resource sharing part, which is probably the bit you're really interested in. This is more like foundational work. So um, we've pulled together what's called an Okapi platform, which is a set of modules that work together to provide an application. So we have a thing called Platform RS, the resource sharing platform, which is a set of modules that we've pulled together. Here's the kind of folio front end, if you like, and this is using the authentication module and the user module. So we get that functionality for free in essence. I'm logging in as a default administrative user. And you can see here, I've got my application. I've got a couple of applications installed. I've got the users app installed so I can manage users. I've got a resource sharing app. That's where I look at my patron requests and do workflow on requests. And then I've got a directory app, which is the one that I want to talk about today. Currently, there are no items found. That's because this is a completely fresh install. There's no data in here apart from default users. What we've done is to pull together some test data. This is scraped primarily from the policy website. What mod directory is trying to do is to mediate two kinds of information that we need in order to do resource sharing. One is the protocol service endpoints. So the fact that I can send an ISO 10161 request to this endpoint, I can send a GSM, a generic script request to this other endpoint, or I can send an ISO 18262, forget the number, request to this endpoint. So generally speaking, institutions have one of those endpoints that it shares amongst all its branch libraries. There are examples in this consortium, though, I understand, where institutions actually run two different library management systems. So they'll have two different ILO protocol endpoints. At the same time, the other kind of thing we need to manage are branches and symbols. So libraries, when they share catalog data, will say, I've got 5 copies of this book at this branch library and 10 copies at this other branch library. And it's really important that we're able to figure out which branches items might be at so that we can quite specifically target requests if we've got that information. If we don't have that information, of course, we'll send it to a head office or a head branch. But what mod directory is trying to do is to present a structure that will let us express those pieces of information at the right level of granularity for the institution. So if you've got branch level request endpoints and symbols, we can model that. But if you expect all your traffic to be piped through a head office, as might be the case for a smaller institution, we can model that as well, and we can mediate between those different kinds of organization. So if you look in this policy.jq script, which is where we load our test data from, you'll see institutional data. And then in some cases, I've just invented branch library information. But if we scroll down to the new school here, you'll see some hopefully more real test data. So we've got the new school, and then we've got this element called units. This nomenclature is taken from LDAP or X500, where you have the idea of an organizational unit, and they're hierarchically and recursively arranged so they can have ever smaller units. So this section in here, where we have a name for the subunit, there could be units under here and units under that and units under that. So you can just basically break an institution down into whatever size lumps you want. You'll see that our units have got their own symbols, and I've invented an authority called ReShare where I've made up some symbols for the branch libraries. I don't know what these might be when we create a shared catalog. You can see as well, though, that at the level of the organization, the new school, we've also got symbols. And here I happen to know that the new school as a whole has an OCLC symbol of ZMU. So we've attached that symbol at this level of the institution. If it were the case that the branch libraries had individual OCLC symbols, then we could add those here and we'd be able to model that as well. You can also see we've got services. So we're saying if you wanted to send an ISO 18626 request to the new school, this is the URL that you would send that to. So this is very definitely service information. And we've got some other information here which we're going to use in requesting about what our preferred namespaces are. So this file kind of represents what a user might type in. So I'm going to pretend to be the user interface, if you like. And if I go to my console, I can run this script. And what this script is doing, as I said, is basically emulating the user interface. So it's like going to the user interface and saying, I want to make a new institution, I want to make a new institution. If I go back to the directory now, and if I refresh this, you'll see that now I've got some real data in here. So this is looking at the user interface for mod directory. And bear in mind, the function of mod directory is actually to support the resource sharing application, not necessarily to be a user interface itself, but this is a convenient way of showing progress. If you cast your mind back to the test data, we had the new school, and it had 3 branch libraries: the University Centre Library, the List Centre Library, and the Performing Arts Library. So you can see here we've got the organisation, and you can see that's got a tag of institution, and they support Easy Borrow. So that's some information which has been lifted from the policy directory. And you can see I'm also saying the symbols that I know for this are OCLC ZMU. So that's quite handy. I'm going to click on that now and show the detail panel. Oh, sorry, the other thing, I'm synthetically creating a name from the name and the parent. So this is the new school, the institution, and then the name which is given to the University Centre Library is the parent's name, the new school / University Centre Library. I'm not really sure what the best way of presenting that hierarchy is yet, so kind of working on that and just thinking about it, but that's what's going on. Over in the details panel then, this is very much a work in progress, and you can think of this as a scaffold. So I'm putting this in place. Hopefully Mike Taylor is going to take this and turn it into a beautifully crafted interface piece. You can see for now I'm just showing the new school as a name, and then I'm dumping all the information that the back end is sending, so that we've got a kind of a way of seeing what would be there once we've presented it properly. And you can see that for the new school as an institution, here are the tags, the fact that it's an institution and it supports Easy Borrow. Here's the OCLC symbol, ZMU. Here's the ReShare symbol, TNS. Name, we've got a structure called announcements, very important. The most important thing is that the new school, because it's this parent thing, has 3 child entries. So we just list the names of our children here, and then you can see the service, or you could see the service if I wasn't in the way. There's the service information about if you want to send an ISO 18626 service. So that's the interface, and then obviously I can look at the individual branch libraries. These are much more simple because I've not got as much service information there, but I could put service information there. The really important thing, though, about the directory is that it supports the resource sharing use case, if you like. And if I quickly go... So that's the end of the pretty demo, but just to show you, there's a script called lookup test, and what this does is this script is basically faking the idea that I've searched a shared catalog and I've found out that the item I want can be found at an organization with the symbol PALSY BRYN. And I want to look up that symbol to see if I can find a protocol endpoint. And if I can find a protocol endpoint, then I want to find the symbols that I should use when I'm making a request to that script, to that service. So what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to run that script here for you, and it's called lookup test. So this is all a bit boring, I guess, but what it's showing you is I've looked up Bryn, and what I've come back with is a record, and you can see in here there's a record which says, oh yeah, I can see you've got an ISO 18626 service. That's what I need to know if I'm going to send a request. In fact, the next one down is more interesting because it's saying, for this symbol, please can you return me all the service records that are specifically about ILL? And what that will return are any records that for an ILL service. So it could be ISO 10161, or it could be ISO 18626, or it could be generic script, or it could be any one of a number of other protocols that we can use for resource sharing. The other kinds of things we can describe are live availability checks, or searching capabilities. So we've got a way to separate out the business function, real-time availability checking, or ILL, resource sharing, or searching, from the actual protocols. So I can say, tell me all the ILL services you support, and this service will throw back at me 18626 records, ISO 101616 records, GSM records, and it'll let me choose which one I want to interact with. So that's the first part of the use case. Can you find me a service that I can use to talk to this symbol? And then the second part of the service is this down here, which is having found a particular endpoint that I can talk to, can you tell me what symbols I should use? Because different protocols will want to use different symbols. And this is the second part of the API down here, which is having looked up a particular institution, can you find me a symbol in a particular namespace for that institution? So you can see here, I've looked up an institution with a code Bryn, and I say, can you tell me the OCLC symbol for that, please? And this has come back with BMC. If it couldn't find one, it would return null, but it's worked in this case, that's great. And then I've looked up a different institution and said, can you find me the OCLC symbol for that institution, please? And it's come back with PBB. So this is all test data we've loaded. So this is quite good. Basically, this is now the data that we need in order to start and construct a resource sharing request to that partner organization. The last thing I wanted to show you was, and this is things I've just shown you are basically what we need, the pieces of infrastructure we're going to need for ReShare. There's a question about how best to maintain that directory, and one of the things that we're looking at is this idea that there's a semantic web standard called FOAF, friend of a friend, and one of the ideas we're playing with, so this is more a research idea than something we'll definitely do, but what we can do is we can take those records that I showed you before, and we can wrap them in a piece of infrastructure which lets us present them as friend of a friend URLs. So you could imagine publishing this JSON document at the same place as, for example, your institutional homepage. You could put it behind a HTTPS interface so that people downloading the file can be sure it's genuine. And what you might do is you might have friend of a friend where you can point to other organizations that you know about. So in this case, I'm saying, this is the new school, and my friends are PALSI as a consortia and the Open Library Foundation as a different organization. And then I can hop to those URLs and I can download their directory information and I can look at their friends and then I can follow those links. And so what we start to be able to describe is a network of directory information where nobody is actually in control of the data. And organizations can publish their own data and update it, but you're not giving control of the network or the directory to any third party. It's actually owned by the members and the participants. What we can do, of course, is this actual file could be maintained by ReShare itself. So if you're using ReShare, you could very easily publish your institutional directory entry at an endpoint where it's publicly available. So you don't necessarily have to maintain this technical structure by hand. But the structure is separate to any one piece of software and to any one piece of ownership. So we create a proper distributed directory of this information. And that feels quite attractive because it means nobody is ever going to be in control of your networks or your consortia. and you can always change the software that sits underneath it and try new things, try different things. So that's the work that we've been doing, and yeah, I think it's coming along quite well. There's quite a lot to see. I'm looking forward to seeing the details panel fill out in a proper user interface rather than my wired together thing. Be really happy to take questions either on the call or on Slack. And yeah, that's Mod Directory where it is now. Cheers.